Okay, I'd like to skip forward then and talk about a specific case study where a lot of the themes and the issues and the questions that we've been talking about are really in play. And this is the example of the Southern Agricultural Growth Corridor in Tanzania, SAGCOT. This is a very large-scale transformational agricultural development strategy for the corridor running from the northern edge of Malawi up to Dar es Salaam. And it is a partnership of multiple private sector agribusiness firms, local farmers, government, and the donor community, including USAID. It plans to mobilize over $2 billion in private investment and over $1 billion in public investment, and with expected outcomes of a tripling of agricultural production and income improvements for several million Tanzanians. In this large agricultural development project, one of the key constraints or bottlenecks to moving the whole agenda forward that's been identified is the issue of land tenure and property rights, and the need to align the incentives of investors and farmers at the village level. And really this case reflects all of the kind of historical and administrative complexity that we've talked about in these channels of the relationship between land tenure, property rights, and growth. Land in Tanzania is officially all public land held in trust by the head of state, and in actual fact, much of it is it falls into two sort of main types, either titled land, which is in fact a kind of long-term lease guaranteed by a certificate of occupancy, or village land, which is essentially the customary land that belongs to a village. And that village land is often unsurveyed and uncertified, which creates, especially from an agribusiness or investor point of view, a fairly high degree of uncertainty about rights. And access in these village lands typically is controlled by village government, and with traditional use rights recognized and organized within the village itself. There is a legal mechanism for creating a lease to outsiders, but it's a fairly complex procedure to do that. In this situation, therefore, there is still a great deal of uncertainty on the part of agribusiness investors and also on the part of farmers of actually which land can be invested in and who it belongs to and who is entitled to the benefits from increasing production on that land. And with the expectation of this large investment in infrastructure and in agriculture, these questions have become really critical for the development. What's happening? Well, the immediate approach is to focus that investment in places where land is already titled. And this, just as we've been discussing, therefore utilizes the places which have the most certainty and the most security to get the project started and to be moving forward. But there's a lot of remaining agenda, and moving ahead, I think there are many reform areas which are being contemplated to make rights clearer, more certain, and to give this type of investment certainty. There's discussion about potentially amending the Village Land Act to facilitate more clear and equitable and transparent allocation of the rights within the village land area. There is discussion and attempts being made to expand and complete the mapping and the cadastral mapping, that is to say the parcel level mapping of existing occupancy, and to therefore fill out the record of existing parcels, occupancy, and rights within the village and within the non-village land. There is work being done to improve the land use planning, to complete the district and the village land use plans in a way which would clarify which areas are most suitable for different kinds of agriculture and other uses. And there are also economic mechanisms that are being worked on, the strengthening of regional land banks to be able, this is the transaction pathway, to be able to bring land into a structure which can acquire it and then lease it out in a long-term way. And there's also discussion of innovative methods of facilitating a long-term lease by groups of villagers and pooling land from the village to lease them out. And so we see in each of these areas issues of improving security, improving clarity, improving transactability, and improving the type of rights. And this idea of, for example, of villagers pooling land would be that kind of innovation in the land rights institution. So I think the Tanzania case is something to keep following and to see how these issues become resolved as this big project moves forward.